So this is a longer section, and you're in the second chapter now, and we're working to get you to where you know this whole section, and that you won't, hopefully that by the time you leave this session, you're not really going to have to go back and study much on this section. So acute means sudden. It's just, that's all it means, is just sudden. If you have an acute illness, it's something that comes on suddenly. It doesn't break down. It's just a word that you have to memorize. So subacute, sub means probably less than. So subacute is less in intensity. Chronic, chrono means time. That's our combining form. And you aren't gonna be asked what is the combining form what is the combining form of chronic, but it helps you learn and it helps you spell if you do take the time to analyze these different word elements. So chrono means time, and ic means pertaining to. So the literal definition would be pertaining to time. The actual definition is continuing for 3 or more months. So if you have a chronic condition, you've got something that's been going on for 3 or more months. The condition's chronic. And obviously, that's not a literal translation, whereas many words do have literal translations, chronic does not. So you can't always go with the literal translation. You have to do a little bit more than that to know what the actual term means. So it's not enough to just say, oh, pertaining to time. Okay. Something happened. Okay. Okay, exacerbation. Exacerbo means increase or provoke, and ation is a process of being or having. So an exacerbation is when something suddenly gets worse in the severity of signs or symptoms. So if you have an exacerbation of an illness, it gets all of a sudden worse. Remission, remisso is to send back, and un is action. So it's condition of temporary improvements in the symptoms or signs of the disease without the underlying disease being cured. So sometimes you'll hear somebody say, I'm in remission from cancer, and that means that I don't have any symptoms right now, but my cancer hasn't been cured. So you can be in remission for a long time or a short time, or maybe the symptoms never come back, but the disease is not actually cured and the person's not having any problems. So remission is good. Sequela does not break down. It's just an abnormal condition or complication that arises because of the disease and remains after the disease is cured. So a sequela is just a complication that you get, and you still have it after you get cured from the actual disease. Therapeutic, theraputo means therapy or treatment, and ic means pertaining to. So therapeutic is anything that has healing or curative powers for a disease or ailment. And refractory, re is unable, or it means again and again or backwards. So it could mean any of those 3 things for re. Fracto is to break up, and ori is having the function of. So refractory it's not following a literal translation, but it means it's resistant or does not respond to treatment. So if something's refractory, it does not respond to treatment. Prognosis is pro is before, gnosis, knowledge, and osis is condition or process. So when you have a prognosis, you're predicting the outcome of a disease. It's like you're before knowledge, you're predicting. Recuperation, recupero, is to recover. Ation is a process of being or having. And so a recuperation is the recovery to return to a normal state of health. And hopefully you're catching on that the blue is the combining form, the purple is the suffix, and the yellow is the definition. Disability does not break down, but a disability is a permanent impairment or loss of the ability to perform certain activities or functions. So if you have a disability, you have an impairment that affects you some way in your daily activities. Terminal means end or boundary, and al means pertaining to. So it's an illness that you cannot recover from that leads to death. And I want to go back and go through those again and see if we can get those down to very simple terms for you. Question. Somebody has one?
Is there a way we could get these slides after you're done?
Sure, you're going to get the whole recording.
Okay, fantastic.
But if you want the PowerPoint, I'd be happy to make them available to you.
Right. Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Let's go back. And some of these are harder than others. Acute, I don't think we really need to talk about. It's sudden. And subacute is a little bit less sudden. I think you can get those two down. Can anybody say what chronic is? Not using the exact words. Three months or more. Long term. So yeah, chronic is just something that lasts kind of a long time. It's a long length of time. So if you don't like memorizing, continue for 3 months or more. There's not going to be any questions that I don't think Julie could probably comment on this too, where we would ever say, how long is something have to go on before it's considered chronic? We would just want you to know that chronic means for a long length of time. How about exacerbation in your own words? And type it in the chat if you could. Suddenly getting way worse. That is probably words that you would probably use if you were talking to somebody else. I think that if those are the types of words that help you, you're going to be all set on the exam. Causing to get worse. So just getting worse is probably enough. Severe sudden symptoms getting worse. It's a sudden worsening. I don't know if it's a sudden symptoms getting worse. It's just a sudden worsening. So the symptoms may or may not have been sudden. So to me, it just means suddenly taking a turn for the worse would be probably how I would explain that if I was explaining it to somebody who didn't know very much about medicine.
It doesn't need eyes in it.
Okay, what about remission? And you can type in the chat again, or if you like to, you can raise your hand and speak. Getting better without getting cured. That's probably a pretty good way to say it. Symptoms go away without the disease being cured. Symptoms are gone, but original disease remains. Those are nice, simple ways to explain it. Very good. How about sequela? And again, type on the chat. I have two screens, that's why I look to my left. I've got my chat over on the left. A condition that comes from a disease, and even more than that, it does get kind of a side effect from a disease that doesn't go away. Yes, good. A long-lasting effect of a disease is a really good way to say it. Okay. Therapeutic. Yeah, that's a pretty easy one. So let's go on to refractory. It's probably pretty easy. What do you think on refractory? Treatment does, yes, resistant to treatment, unable to be cured, treatment doesn't work, resistance, yes. Okay. Prognosis. You can type predicted outcome. Yes. Expected outcome. Yeah. So it's just based on what we know, we expect you're going to do like this because this is what the studies tell us and the research and how other people have done. It doesn't mean that it's going to be accurate, but that a prognosis is their best, whoever's making the prognosis, best estimate of how a person will do with their condition. Recuperation is a recovery. How would you define disability? That one kind of looks like a mouthful on when you look at the kind of the textbook definition. So permanent impairment, permanent loss of ability, something that hinders everyday life, loss of the basic ability, permanent impairment, not being able, okay, very good. And if something's terminal, what does it mean to you? Most likely will result in death. The expected prognosis is that the person will not recover from it. We don't know how long, but if somebody's terminal, you don't know if they're going to, expected to live a long time or a short time, but if something's terminal, then you're probably looking at a condition that they think will ultimately lead to death. So the point of all this, and making you go through it twice, was to give you the idea that Kathy and Julie and I talk about this a lot on how students really will do very well if they just take the time to learn the words and learn and think about what they really mean. Don't just try to memorize what that book definition says. Particularly your book sometimes says a whole lot of things about the condition and doesn't always say just a straight up definition. And so really work to get to using words that make sense to you. Of course, they have to make sense to you and they have to reflect the big long words, but if you take the time to do that, then you'll probably be in good shape. One